The nurse wouldn't look at me. That's the detail I keep coming back to. She's telling me I've been here 72 hours, checking my vitals, adjusting the IV I don't remember consenting to, and her eyes are on the floor, like she's apologizing for something she can't say out loud. I asked her what happened, and she said, "Your son brought you in." I asked her why, and that's when she finally looked up, and I saw it, pity mixed with something else, knowledge. She knew something I didn't, and it was eating her alive to watch me figure it out in real time. That face told me everything before the words caught up. I'm William, I'm 65 years old, and 3 months ago I woke up in a psychiatric ward with no memory of how I got there. I was drugged, committed against my will, and had my entire life sold out from under me by the person I trusted most in this world, my son. And what I'm about to share with you isn't a revenge fantasy or a legal thriller. This is about something far more important and far more painful. This is about what you do when the person you loved most becomes unrecognizable, and you're forced to choose between your heart and your survival. Most advice about betrayal tells you to set boundaries or cut toxic people off. But what happens when the betrayer is someone you literally created? When the hurt is so deep it has your DNA in it? When protecting yourself means admitting that love wasn't enough, that you failed to see what was growing in the dark? See, the core pain I'm addressing today, the thing that nobody talks about openly, is the paralyzing conflict between the identity of good parent and the reality of betrayed victim. The shame of not seeing it coming, the guilt of fighting back, the impossibility of grieving someone who's still alive and actively harming you. What you're going to get from this video that you won't find anywhere else is a framework for rebuilding agency after someone weaponizes your trust, not through hatred, but through radical clarity. I'm going to show you how I turned the worst violation of my life into a reclamation of selfhood without becoming the villain in my own story. You're going to learn why, "but their family," is the most dangerous sentence in the English language. How to grieve someone who's still alive and actively harming you. The difference between justice and closure and why you might only get one. And how to love the memory without excusing the crime. Here's the reframe I need you to understand right now. You've been told that forgiveness is healing. That's a lie. Clarity is healing. Boundaries are healing. Refusing to let someone rewrite your story, that's healing. Forgiveness might come later or never, and that doesn't make you broken. This video is for anyone who's ever been betrayed by proximity, manipulated by someone who knew exactly which wounds to press. This is for people who've been told to move on but don't know how to move when the ground is still shaking. You're not weak for being blindsided. You're human. Let's turn that into power. Let me take you through the first 48 hours after I woke up. Not because it's dramatic, but because it's where I learned the anatomy of erasure. I'm going to walk you through what it feels like to rebuild a timeline when your own brain has been chemically edited. Day 1 in the psych ward. I don't know what day it is. The light coming through the window is wrong, too bright, too sharp. Everything feels cottony and distant, like I'm watching my life through a frosted window. I ask a nurse what happened. She says, "My son brought me in, voluntarily committed, said I was confused and a danger to myself. I have no memory of this, none. My last clear memory is Tuesday afternoon. It's now Friday." I start asking questions. Wrong move. Every question makes me look more unstable. Why don't I remember? They think it's dementia. I didn't agree to this. They say I did. There's paperwork. My signature. I stare at it. It looks like mine. The loops, the slant, even the way I cross my T. But I don't remember writing it. I don't remember any of it. And when you tell people you don't remember signing documents that clearly have your name on them, when you insist you're fine while sitting in a hospital gown with an IV in your arm, you sound exactly like someone who needs to be there. That's the trap. The more you protest, the crazier you look. Here's what I didn't know yet. My son had been planning this for months. He'd researched elder psychiatric holds. He'd talked to his fiancée about the house, my house, weeks before. He'd practiced the intake conversation, the concerned son routine, the right words to say to make them believe him and doubt me. I was the last person to know I was the target. Let me tell you what that feels like. It feels like finding out you've been living in a play and everyone knew their lines except you. It feels like discovering that while you were making breakfast and asking about his day and trying to be a good father, he was measuring you for a cage. I got out on day 4. A doctor finally listened, a younger guy, maybe early 40s, and he actually ran cognitive tests instead of just assuming. Memory recall, pattern recognition, problem solving, the works. I was fine. Sharp. Better than fine, actually. He looked confused, checked the intake notes, looked at me again. He said, Mr. Harrison, I'm not seeing any indication of cognitive impairment. I'm not sure why you're here. I said, bah, neither am I. He released me with apologies and vague language about misunderstandings and miscommunications and how sometimes families overreact out of concern. Professional liability speak. Nobody wanted to say the obvious, that I'd been locked up on false pretenses. I went home. Except I didn't have a home anymore. I pulled up to my house, the house I'd lived in for 32 years, the house where I raised my son, where his mother and I celebrated anniversaries and Christmases and every small, boring, beautiful moment of ordinary life. There was a sold sign in the yard. Sold, not for sale, sold. I sat in my car staring at that sign like it was written in a foreign language. I got out, walked to the front door. My key didn't work. The locks were changed. I stood there on my own porch, trying my key over and over, like maybe the 4th or 5th time it would magically fit. And a woman opened the door, young, maybe 30, looked annoyed. She said, "Can I help you?" I said, "I live here." She said, "No, you don't. I just bought this house." I asked her who she bought it from. She hesitated, and I saw it, that flicker of, oh shit, this is awkward. She said, "A limited liability company. I went through a real estate agent. Look, I don't know what this is about, but you need to leave or I'm calling the police." I asked her how much she paid. She said that was none of my business. I said, "Please, I just need to know." Maybe she heard something in my voice, some edge of desperation that made her human for a second. She said, $715,000. The house was worth $950,000. I know because I'd had it appraised 6 months earlier when I was considering a reverse mortgage. I never went through with it, but I had the paperwork. $715,000. My son sold my house for $235,000 under value to his fiancée's LLC. I sat in my car in the driveway and tried to understand what language to use. Was I robbed, evicted, erased? The answer was simpler and worse. I was expedited. He wanted me out of the way and he found the fastest legal path to make that happen. And the system helped him. That's what nobody tells you about elder abuse. It's not always some stranger stealing social security checks. Sometimes it's your own child using the law like a scalpel, cutting you out of your own life with signed forms and medical authority, and the assumption that, of course, the younger person is the reliable one. Of course, the older person is confused. Age becomes evidence against you. Let me tell you about an architect who spent 30 years designing a beautiful house. Every room had meaning. The walls were filled with memories, photographs, blueprints of the life he built. He invited his apprentice to live there, learn there, eventually inherit it. But the apprentice started seeing the house differently, not as a home, as an asset. He noticed the architect was getting older, slower. He began to think, why wait? So he did something clever. He convinced the architect he was sick, told him he was forgetting things, seeing things, brought in strangers who nodded seriously and agreed. The architect started doubting himself. Maybe he was losing it. Maybe he did need help. One day, the apprentice gave him tea. The architect fell asleep. When he woke up, he was in a white room. The apprentice had the keys. The house was being sold. The architect's name was on documents he didn't remember signing. Here's the twist. The architect wasn't angry at first, he was confused, because part of him still believed he'd taught the apprentice well. That love was in there somewhere, that this was a misunderstanding. It wasn't. The apprentice had learned everything except empathy. He'd mastered the blueprints, but not the soul of the house. That's what my son did. He learned my patterns, my trust, my routines, and he turned them into a blueprint for my disappearance. The question I had to face, and maybe you do too, is this. Can you love someone and still see them clearly? Or does love make you blind until it's too late? I know what you're thinking. William, what did you do? How do you fight back when the system already believed his story? Hold that question, because what I did wasn't what you'd expect. And it started with a file cabinet and a phone call I should have made years earlier. Here's what I learned in the wreckage. Not advice, not platitudes, just the brutal, clarifying truths I wish someone had told me at 60. You think trust is a gift you give to people you love. It's not. Trust is access, and access in the wrong hands becomes a weapon. My son had access to my routines. He knew I drank tea every night. Chamomile with honey, same mug, same time, 9:30 like clockwork. My documents. He'd been in my filing cabinet for years, helping with paperwork, he said, organizing things because I was getting older and he wanted to make it easier for me. How thoughtful. My vulnerabilities. He knew I was lonely after his mother died. She passed 4 years ago, cancer, and the house got real quiet, real fast. He knew I was desperate to feel needed, to feel like I still mattered to him. And my reputation, he told doctors I had been acting strange, and they believed him because he was calm, concerned, articulate, and had medical power of attorney I'd signed years ago when his mother was sick, and we were trying to get our affairs in order, just in case. I gave him all of that because I loved him. I didn't know love could be researched, reverse-engineered, and used as a manual for dismantling me. Stop thinking of trust as unconditional. Trust is evidence-based. It should be updated in real time. The moment someone's actions contradict their words, pause. Don't explain it away. Don't justify. Pause and gather data. I ignored red flags for 2 years. He asked about my will more than my health. When he called, it was always, "Hey Dad, quick question. Where do you keep the deed to the house?" Or, "Do you have life insurance? Who's the beneficiary?" Never, "How are you feeling? Are you lonely? Do you need anything?" He volunteered to help with finances, but never asked how I was feeling. He'd come over, go straight to my office, spend an hour filing things and organizing and making copies, and leave. Barely a conversation. I told myself he was busy. He brought his fiancée to my home, but never introduced us properly. She was always just there, in the background, looking around like she was measuring for curtains. I thought she was shy. I thought maybe she was nervous about meeting me. It never occurred to me that she was cataloging. I told myself, he's busy, he's stressed, he loves me. That's what we do, right? We tell ourselves stories that let us keep believing in the people we need to believe in. We ignore the data because the data hurts. Love and harm are not opposites. Sometimes love is the camouflage harm wears. That's a hard truth. It's easier to think of abusers as monsters, as people who never loved you. But sometimes they did love you in their way, and they still hurt you. Sometimes they love you and resent you at the same time. Sometimes they love the idea of you, but hate the inconvenience of you. My son loved having a father, the concept, the social credibility of it. He didn't love me, the actual person with needs and a future and a right to my own life. Here's something that will make you furious. The psychiatric system is designed to believe the person who arrives calm. My son walked into that hospital composed, tearful, but controlled. He had documents, a folder, organized, tabs labeled. He used phrases like cognitive decline and safety concerns, and I'm worried he's going to hurt himself. He played the role of the loving son perfectly. And he is a good actor, he always has been. I remember when he was 12, he lied about breaking a neighbor's window, looked me right in the eye, and sold it so well I believed him. Even after the neighbor showed me the baseball with his name on it, I thought it was a phase. Kids lie. They grow out of it. He didn't grow out of it. He just got better at it. I woke up sedated, confused, angry. I looked like the problem. The system doesn't investigate. It absorbs the first narrative. And if that narrative comes from someone who looks responsible, who has legal standing, who knows the right words, it becomes truth. Documentation beats emotion. Every time. When I got out, I didn't yell, I didn't accuse. I did something smarter. I got a cognitive evaluation from an independent neurologist, not the hospital's doctor. An independent one. I paid out of pocket. I requested my medical records, which is your right, by the way. Always request your medical records. I hired a lawyer who specialized in elder exploitation, not a general practice attorney. A specialist. Someone who'd seen this before. I built a counter-narrative made of facts, timestamps, and third-party verification. Here's the paradox. To prove you're sane, you have to act like emotion doesn't exist. You have to become colder than the person who hurt you. That's the cost of being believed. I had to sit in a lawyer's office and recite the details. Like I was reading a grocery list. No tears, no shaking voice, just facts. My son committed me on this date. I was released on this date. The house was sold on this date. Here's the appraisal showing the value. Here's the sale price. Here's the LLC registration showing his fiancée as the owner. It felt like betraying myself, like I was dishonoring my own pain by not showing it, but showing it would have made me look unstable. So I put the pain in a box and I carried the box into every meeting, and I never opened it in front of anyone who had power over my case. My son is alive, healthy, probably planning his wedding right now. And I grieve him like he's dead. Because the son I loved, the one I made coffee for, the one I thought needed my advice, he's gone. And maybe he never existed. Maybe I invented him out of hope and selective memory. The man who drugged me, who forged documents, who sold my home, he's real. He's the update. And I have to let the old version die. This is the grief nobody prepares you for. Mourning someone who's still breathing. Someone you'll maybe see at a grocery store. Someone whose voice you'll still recognize. You don't get a funeral. You don't get closure. You get amputation while the limb is still moving. People will tell you to reconcile, to forgive, to be the bigger person. And I want to be very clear about this. You're allowed to close the door. You're allowed to say, I loved who I thought you were. I don't know who you are now, and I'm not willing to find out. Grief is not a sign you're stuck. Grief is proof you loved something real, even if it wasn't returned. I'm still grieving. Some mornings I wake up and for about 5 seconds I forget what happened, and I think about calling him, telling him about something I read, or asking if he wants to come over for dinner. And then I remember, and it's like losing him all over again. That's what prolonged grief feels like. It's not one big loss. It's 1,000 small losses every time your brain forgets and then remembers. I got my house back, legally. After 4 months, 2 lawyers and a judge who saw through the shell company sale. The judge was a woman, older, maybe late 50s. She looked at the documents, looked at my son's lawyer and said, "Counsel, are you seriously arguing that a cognitively sound man voluntarily sold his home for $200,000 under market value and then coincidentally forgot about it?" His lawyer stammered something about family disputes and misunderstandings. She wasn't having it. She voided the sale. I won. And I still wake up some nights with my heart racing, checking the locks, wondering if he's coming back. Justice doesn't erase trauma. It just closes the legal chapter. Healing is different. Healing is slower, quieter, harder to measure. It's learning to trust yourself again. It's forgiving yourself for not seeing it sooner. It's accepting that you can be smart, strong, experienced, and still be blindsided by someone who's been studying you your whole life. The trap is thinking that winning the case will make you whole. It won't. The case gives you your house back. Healing gives you yourself back. I'm still in that process. Some days I'm angry, some days I'm numb, some days I forget for an hour, and it feels like freedom. You don't get over betrayal. You learn to build a life that doesn't require the betrayer's presence. That's not poetic. It's just true. So here's where it gets practical. You might be watching this and thinking, I'm not 65, my kid didn't drug me, but I do feel erased by someone I loved. What do you actually do with that? Let me show you. I'm going to give you 5 things I did and 5 things you can do, no matter your situation, to stop being a character in someone else's story and start being the author of your own. Sit down, make a list. Who has access to your finances, your medical information, your home, your routines, your vulnerabilities? Now ask, do they deserve it based on current behavior or past hope? I revoked my son's power of attorney the day I got out. I changed my will. I locked down my accounts. I added 2-factor authentication to everything. I changed my passwords. I even changed my daily routines because I didn't want him to know my patterns anymore. It felt cold. It felt like betrayal. Good. Protecting yourself isn't betrayal. It's clarity. You know what I found when I started auditing? He had copies of my social security card, my birth certificate, my banking information, my insurance policies. I found them in his apartment later during a legal discovery process. He had a whole file on me, like I was a project. That's not love, that's reconnaissance. If you feel like someone is manipulating you, write it down. Date, time, what was said, what happened, how you felt. Not for court, not for proof, for you, so you can't gaslight yourself later. I found a journal entry from 8 months before the psych ward. I'd written, he asked about my house again today. It felt off, but I'm probably overthinking. I wasn't. Your gut is data. Treat it like evidence. We're taught to second-guess our instincts, especially about people we love. We're taught that suspicion is ungenerous, that doubt is a failing, but your nervous system knows things your conscious mind doesn't want to accept. That feeling in your stomach, that tension in your shoulders, when someone says something that's technically fine but feels wrong, that's information. Write it down. Find one person outside the situation, a friend, a therapist, a lawyer. Tell them everything. Let them reflect it back to you. Abusers rely on isolation. They need you to think you're crazy, overreacting, misunderstanding. A witness breaks the spell. I called my old friend Roger 2 weeks after I got out. I hadn't talked to him in months because I'd been embarrassed, didn't want to admit what was happening, didn't even fully understand it myself. I called him and I just unloaded the whole story. He listened, didn't interrupt, and when I was done, he said, "Mia William, that's not a misunderstanding, that's a crime. You know that, right?" And hearing someone else say it, someone I trusted, someone with no agenda, it made it real in a way it hadn't been before. Say it out loud, to yourself, to someone safe. I'm grieving the person I thought they were. Don't rush it, don't fix it. Let it exist. You're not being dramatic. You're being honest. I started saying it in the mirror. Sounds stupid, I know, but I needed to hear it in my own voice. I'm grieving my son. I'm grieving the future I thought we'd have. I'm grieving the version of him I believed in. And saying it didn't make it hurt less, but it made it clearer. Grief needs language. When you name it, you contain it. When you contain it, you can carry it without it carrying you. Build one new boundary, just one. I'm not answering calls after 8 p.m. I'm not discussing my finances with you. I'm not pretending this didn't happen. Start small. Boundaries are muscles. You build them with reps. My first boundary was simple. I stopped explaining myself. Before, if I said no to something, I'd give reasons, justifications, apologies. Now I just say no, I'm not doing that. No, that doesn't work for me. No, period. You don't owe anyone a dissertation on your boundaries. The boundary is the answer. Now let's talk about what I did next, because getting the house back was just the beginning. The real question was, how do I live in it now? How do I reclaim not just the property, but my name? That's where the nightmare I promised you comes in, not revenge, something sharper. Here's the part where I stop being the victim and become the problem. And I don't mean that violently, I mean it surgically. 3 weeks after I got the house back, my son sent me a letter, not an apology, a legal threat. He claimed I was slandering him, that I was damaging his reputation by telling people what he did, that if I didn't stop, he'd sue me for defamation. I read it twice, then I laughed, the kind of laugh that comes from the bottom of your spine. The kind that's not about humor, it's about recognition. Because here's what he didn't know. I hadn't told anyone, not publicly. I'd been quiet, humiliated. I didn't want people to know my son had done this to me. I'd told Roger, I'd told my lawyers, I'd told the doctors who evaluated me. But I hadn't gone public. I hadn't posted on social media. I hadn't called the local news. I'd been protecting him even after everything. But his letter told me something crucial. He was afraid. Not of me, of the truth, of people knowing. And that's when I realized his scheme only works in the dark. So I turned on the lights. I didn't hire a PR firm. I didn't post on social media. I did something simpler. I called his fiance's parents. I invited them to coffee. I brought documents, medical records showing I was cognitively sound, the sale contract showing the undervalue, the cognitive evaluation, the timeline of the psych ward admission and release, the LLC registration, everything. I said, I'm not asking you to do anything. I'm just asking you to know who your daughter is marrying. They sat there in silence. Her mother cried. Not loud, just quiet tears running down her face. Her father looked sick, pale. He kept reading the documents like he was looking for a way they could be wrong. He finally looked up at me and said, "Did she know? Did our daughter know what he did to you?" I said, "Her name is on the LLC. She bought my house for $200,000 under value. You tell me." 2 weeks later, the engagement was off. I didn't celebrate, I didn't gloat, but I slept through the night for the first time in months. A few days after that, my neighbor Helen, older woman, kind face, stopped me in the driveway. She said, "William, I heard what happened. I'm so sorry." I nodded, said thank you. Then she asked the question I'd been avoiding. "Do you think you'll ever forgive him?" I stood there, birds chirping, sun out, normal day, and I said, "I don't know, and I don't think I need to know yet." She looked confused, so I explained, "Forgiveness isn't something I owe him. It's not a debt. It's not a finish line. Maybe one day I'll feel it. Maybe I won't. Right now, what I need is distance. What I need is safety. What I need is to stop thinking his healing is my responsibility." Helen nodded slowly. She said, "That's fair." And I realized I'd been carrying his guilt for him. Every time someone asked if I forgave him, I felt pressure, like I was the one holding up reconciliation, like I was the one being unreasonable. But he drugged me, he stole from me, he tried to erase me. And somehow I was supposed to make him feel better about it. No, his guilt is his to carry, not mine. Here's the thing about turning someone's scheme into their nightmare. It's not about destruction. It's about exposure. It's about refusing to be the secret they're trying to bury. Let me break down what that actually looks like. There's this unspoken rule in families. Don't air dirty laundry. Keep it private. Handle it internally. Don't embarrass each other. That rule is a cage. It keeps victims quiet and abusers safe. My son was counting on my shame. He assumed I wouldn't tell anyone because I'd be too humiliated to admit what he did. That people would pity me, that I'd protect his image to protect my own. He was half right. I was ashamed. For weeks, but then I realized shame is just internalized blame. And I didn't do this, so I stopped protecting his reputation. I didn't slander him. I didn't lie. I just stopped hiding the truth. I told my friends what happened. I told his fiance's family. I told my lawyer, my doctor, anyone who asked. I stopped saying, we had a disagreement or it's complicated. I said, my son drugged me, had me committed, and tried to steal my house. Full sentence, no softening. And you know what happened? People believed me. People supported me. And his narrative, the one where I was the confused old man, collapsed. The truth is antibacterial. It kills lies when exposed to air. I didn't want revenge. I wanted him to feel what he did. Revenge is performative. It's about making someone hurt because you hurt. Consequences are different. Consequences are reality catching up. I didn't break up his engagement. His actions did. I didn't ruin his reputation. His choices did. I just stopped managing the fallout for him. Here's the shift. You don't have to do anything to someone who's harmed you. You just have to stop protecting them from the natural results of their behavior. Let the truth land where it lands. Let people draw their own conclusions. Let consequences be consequences. That's not cruelty. That's clarity. People conflate forgiveness and reconciliation like they're the same thing. They're not. Forgiveness is internal. It's about releasing the emotional debt someone owes you. It's saying, I'm not going to let this poison me anymore. Reconciliation is external. It's about restoring relationship. It requires two people. It requires change, accountability, trust rebuilt over time. You can forgive someone and never speak to them again. You can release the bitterness and still keep the boundary. I don't know if I've forgiven my son yet. Some days it feels close. Other days, the anger is fresh, like it just happened yesterday. But I do know this, whether I forgive him or not, I'm never letting him back in. That door is closed, not out of spite, out of self-preservation. Forgiveness is optional. Safety is not. After everything, I had a choice. I could shrink. I could become the sad old man whose son betrayed him. I could let this define me, let it be the story people tell about me, the tragedy that explains why I'm quiet at parties or why I don't talk about my family. Or I could stand up, look people in the eye and say, I survived, I fought back, and I'm still here. I chose the latter. I started saying no to things I didn't want to do. People would invite me to things out of pity, you could tell. That sympathetic head tilt. William, we'd love to have you over. You shouldn't be alone. And I started saying, I appreciate that, but I'm fine, thank you. Not mean, just honest. I started asking for help when I needed it, but only from people I trusted. I started showing up differently in the world. Not bitter, not broken, clear. And people responded. I'm not a victim in their eyes. I'm a man who got knocked down and stood back up. That's the story I'm telling now. You teach people how to see you by how you see yourself. If you wear your trauma like a costume, they'll see the trauma. If you wear your survival like armor, they'll see your strength. Both are true. You get to choose which one you lead with. So, what does life look like now? How do you actually live after something like this? That's the question I get most. And the answer isn't neat, but it's real. I used to think family was blood. That's it. You're born into it. You're stuck with it. You owe them loyalty just for existing in proximity to you. Now, I think family is chosen alignment. It's the people who show up, who see you, who don't require you to shrink or perform or explain yourself into acceptability. I have two friends, Helen and Roger, who check on me more than my son ever did. They're my family now. Helen brings me soup when I'm sick. Roger calls me every Sunday just to talk. Not because they have to, because they want to. Because they see me as a person, not a resource. You're allowed to recast the roles, and you're allowed to say, this person has the title of son or daughter or parent or partner, but they don't have the function. And the function is what matters. Stop trying to rise above it. Feel the rage. Punch a pillow. Scream in your car. Write a letter you'll never send. I wrote my son a letter 3 months after everything, 10 pages, single-spaced. I said everything I wanted to say to his face. but knew I'd never get the chance, and then I burned it in my fireplace and watched the pages curl and blacken and disappear. Anger is information. It tells you a boundary was crossed. Don't live there, but don't skip it either. We're taught that anger is ugly, that it's unspiritual, that enlightened people don't get angry. That's garbage. Anger is a guard dog. It barks when someone breaks into your house. And you don't have to live with the barking forever, but you should listen to what it's trying to tell you. I started having coffee on my porch every morning, alone, just me and the birds. It's small, but it's mine. Reclaiming your life starts with reclaiming your time. One ritual, one non-negotiable moment that's just for you. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be Instagram worthy. It just has to be yours. Now practice saying, I was betrayed. I didn't deserve that. I'm allowed to protect myself. Say it until it stops feeling dramatic, until it just feels true. I practiced in my car. I'd sit in parking lots before going into the grocery store and I'd say it out loud. I was betrayed. I didn't deserve that. I'm allowed to protect myself. The first few times I cried, then I didn't. Then it just became a fact. Like saying the sky is blue or water is wet. Healing isn't linear. Some days you'll feel strong, some days you'll cry in the shower. Both are okay. You don't have to be healed to be whole. I had a day last week where I couldn't get out of bed until noon. Just couldn't. Weight of it all came back and I felt like I was underwater. And you know what I did? I let myself stay there. I didn't fight it. I didn't tell myself I was being weak or regressing or failing. I just let it be a hard day. And then the next day was easier. That's how it works. Not a straight line, a spiral. You circle back to the pain sometimes, but each time you're a little higher up, a little further along. Here's what I know now that I didn't know at 65. Waking up in that hospital bed, you can be destroyed and still not be broken. My son took my house, my time, my trust. He tried to take my agency, my clarity, my name, and I'm still here. Not because I'm special, not because I did everything right. I didn't. I made mistakes. I trusted too much. I ignored red flags. I let love blind me. But I made one decision over and over again. I refused to disappear. I didn't fight perfectly. I cried. I doubted myself. I wanted to give up some days. I had moments where I thought maybe it would be easier to just let him have the house, let him win, move into some small apartment somewhere and try to forget. But I didn't. And neither will you. If you're watching this and you feel erased by a partner, a parent, a child, a friend, I need you to hear this. You are not crazy. You are not overreacting. You are not too sensitive. You are responding to real harm with real pain. And that makes you sane. The person who hurt you is counting on your silence, your shame, your confusion. Don't give it to them. Tell the truth. Protect yourself. Let consequences happen. And if forgiveness comes, let it come on your timeline, not theirs. Here's what I say to myself on the hard days. Maybe it'll help you too. I was loyal to someone who wasn't loyal to me. That doesn't make me a fool. It makes me human. And I'm allowed to learn. I'm allowed to close the door. I'm allowed to choose myself. I'm not broken. I've just been lied to. And now I know the truth. And the truth will rebuild me. If this video resonated with you, if you felt seen or understood, or just less alone, leave a comment. Tell me your story, or just say I hear you. I read them. And if you want more conversations like this, real, unfiltered, about the stuff we don't usually say out loud, hit subscribe. Not because I need the numbers, but because I think we need each other. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. You're going to be okay. Maybe not today, but eventually. I believe that. You know what's strange about trauma? It doesn't just live in your memory. It lives in your body. 3 months after I got the house back, I was standing in my kitchen making tea. Same kitchen I'd made tea in for 30 years, and my hands started shaking. Not a little tremor. Full-on shaking like I was freezing. It was 70 degrees in the house. I wasn't cold. I wasn't scared. I was just making tea. And then I realized what my body remembered that my mind had tried to forget. The last time I made tea in this kitchen, my son was here, standing right where I'm standing now. And somewhere in that pot of water or that tea bag was whatever he used to put me under. I haven't been able to drink tea since. I know that sounds small. It's just tea. But it's not just tea. It's the loss of a ritual I loved. It's my body saying, we're not safe here. We're not safe with this. We remember what happened last time. And I had to grieve that too. The small losses inside the big loss. The routines that get contaminated. The memories that curdle. I switched to coffee. It's not the same. But it's mine. He never touched my coffee. That's what recovery looks like sometimes. Not triumphant. Just different. Just finding new rituals because the old ones are haunted. Let me tell you something I haven't told many people. About 2 months after everything, I drove past my son's apartment. I didn't plan to. I was running errands, and I took a wrong turn, and suddenly I was on his street. And I slowed down. I don't know what I was looking for. A sign that he felt bad? Evidence that he was suffering? Some visible proof that what he did mattered? His car was in the driveway. Lights on inside. I could see movement through the window. He was just living his life. Making dinner, probably. Watching TV. Existing like nothing had happened. And that broke something in me that I didn't know was still whole. I thought, on some level, that doing something that terrible to another person would haunt you. That you'd be marked by it somehow. That guilt would be visible. But he was fine. He had moved on before I even knew there was something to move on from. And I had to accept that some people can do unforgivable things and sleep just fine. That conscience is not distributed equally. That remorse is not a given. My son doesn't lie awake at night thinking about what he did to me. He might not think about it at all. And I had to learn to carry that, the knowledge that I mattered so little that destroying me didn't even cost him his sleep. Here's what nobody tells you about betrayal. The person who hurt you gets to walk away. You're the one stuck with the processing. You're the one doing the work of understanding, healing, rebuilding. They just get to continue. And that feels cosmically unfair. It is unfair. But fairness is not a law of nature. It's a human invention, and it doesn't always apply. So what do you do with that? You stop waiting for their guilt to validate your pain. You stop needing them to acknowledge what they did for it to be real. You start validating yourself. I started going to therapy at 65. First time in my life. I thought therapy was for people who were broken or weak or couldn't handle things on their own. Turns out therapy is for people who are strong enough to admit they need help. My therapist's name is Dr. Chen. She's maybe 50, sharp, doesn't let me get away with anything. First session I came in and tried to intellectualize everything. Talked about the legal aspects, the timeline, the documentation. Very clinical, very detached. She let me talk for about 20 minutes and then she said, "William, how do you feel?" And I said, "I just told you." She said, "No, you told me what happened. I'm asking how you feel." And I didn't have an answer. I'd been so focused on fixing the problem, winning the case, getting the house back, that I hadn't stopped to actually feel anything. Or I'd been feeling it but not naming it, not letting it have space. She said, "You're allowed to be devastated. You're allowed to be furious. You're allowed to fall apart in this room." And something about being given permission, I just broke. Cried harder than I'd cried since my wife died. Maybe harder, because when my wife died, it was sad, but it made sense. Cancer makes sense. It's cruel, but it follows a logic. This didn't make sense. Your child isn't supposed to hurt you. That's not how the story is supposed to go. Dr. Chen taught me something that changed how I see all of this. She said, betrayal trauma is different from other trauma because it doesn't just hurt you, it changes your understanding of reality. It makes you question your perception, your judgment, your ability to trust yourself. The person who hurt you had insider information. They knew you. They used that knowledge as a weapon. That's why it feels so destabilizing. And she was right. I didn't just lose my house and my son. I lost my confidence in my own mind. I started second-guessing everything, every decision I'd ever made as a parent. Every memory I had of him growing up. Was any of it real? Did he ever actually love me, or was I just useful until I wasn't? She said I might never have those answers. And I had to learn to live in the uncertainty. That's hard for me. I'm an engineer by training. I like problems with solutions. I like questions with answers. But some questions don't have answers. Some things you just have to hold without resolving. Did my son ever love me? I don't know. Does it matter? I don't know. What I do know is that whatever he felt or didn't feel, it didn't stop him from hurting me. And maybe that's the only answer I need. Let me tell you about a conversation I had with Roger about 6 weeks into all this. We were sitting on my porch. It was evening, that blue hour right before dark. And he asked me if I thought my son was evil. Just straight up asked. And I sat with that question for a long time. I said, I don't think he's evil. I think he's empty. I think there's a place where empathy is supposed to live. And in him, it's just hollow. He can simulate it. He can perform it when he needs to, but he doesn't actually feel it. Roger said, that sounds like evil to me. And maybe it is. Maybe the absence of empathy is its own kind of evil. But here's what I realized. It doesn't matter what I call it. Evil, empty, sociopathic, narcissistic, broken. The label doesn't change what happened. The label doesn't protect me. The boundary does. I got really obsessed with understanding him for a while. Read books about personality disorders, watched videos, talked to Dr. Chen about whether he was a narcissist or a sociopath or just profoundly selfish. And one day she stopped me and said, William, why are you doing this? What do you think understanding him will give you? I said, if I understand why he did it, maybe it'll hurt less. She said, or maybe you're trying to find a reason that makes it not personal. But it is personal. He chose to hurt you. The why doesn't make that less true. She was right. I was trying to diagnose him so I could create distance between me and the pain. So I could say, he did this because he has X disorder, not because of anything I did or didn't do as a father. But the truth is messier. Maybe he does have a disorder. Maybe he's just selfish. Maybe I made mistakes as a parent. Maybe I didn't. Maybe all of it's true at once and none of it justifies what he did. I can have been an imperfect father and still not deserve to be drugged and robbed. Both things can be true. Let me tell you what happened when I went back into the house after I got it back legally. I had the locks changed again, new keys, and I stood on the porch with the key in my hand for a solid 10 minutes before I could make myself go in. I was afraid of what I'd find, afraid of what they'd done to it, afraid it would feel violated. I finally unlocked the door and walked in, and it was clean. Too clean. They'd erased me. All my furniture was gone. The pictures off the walls. The books off the shelves. Everything. They'd staged it for sale, and then when the sale fell through, they just left it empty. Like I'd never lived there. Like 32 years of life had never happened. I walked through every room and it echoed. My footsteps on the hardwood floor. I'd refinished myself 20 years ago. The walls I'd painted. The kitchen where I'd made breakfast for my son every morning before school. All of it empty. And I had two choices. I could see it as desecration, as him erasing me, or I could see it as a blank slate, as a chance to start over. I tried to see it as a blank slate, I really did. But that first night, sleeping there, in an empty house, on an air mattress I'd bought that afternoon because I didn't have a bed anymore, I saw it for what it was. Desecration. He'd tried to erase me, and almost succeeded. I started refurnishing slowly. I didn't buy all new stuff at once. I couldn't afford to. The legal fees had eaten through a lot of my savings. I bought a bed, a table, a chair, essentials, and I realized I didn't want to recreate what was there before. I didn't want it to look like it did when he was growing up. That house is gone. This is a different house now. Same walls, different life. I painted the living room a color my wife would have hated, bright turquoise. She always said we should keep things neutral, safe. But she's gone and he's gone and I'm here and I want color. So I painted it turquoise and it's garish and I love it. That felt like reclaiming, not getting back what was taken, creating something new in the space where the old thing died. Here's something I struggled with. People kept asking me,
Do you feel safe in the house? Aren't you afraid he'll come back? And honestly, yes, I'm afraid. I have a security system now. Cameras, motion sensors. I check the locks 3 times before bed. That's not paranoia. That's pattern recognition. He got in once. He could get in again, but I refuse to let fear make me leave. This is my house. I paid for it. I raised a family in it. I buried my wife's ashes in the garden, out back, under the rosebush she loved. I'm not leaving. He doesn't get to take this from me twice. But living with fear is exhausting. It's making every sound at night into a threat. It's waking up at 2 a.m. because you heard something and you have to check every room before you can go back to sleep. It's having your body in constant alert mode. Dr. Chen called it hypervigilance. She said it's a normal response to trauma.
your brain is trying to protect you by scanning for danger constantly. The problem is it can't tell the difference between real danger and perceived danger, so everything becomes a threat. A car slowing down outside, a knock at the door, a phone call from an unknown number. I'm working on it. Therapy helps, time helps. But I'd be lying if I said I felt safe. I feel safer. That's different. Let me tell you about the first time I saw my son after everything. It was at a mediation the lawyers set up. Court ordered. We had to sit in a room together and try to come to an agreement about some remaining financial details. I hadn't seen him in 5 months. I walked into that conference room and there he was, sitting across the table in a suit, haircut, clean-shaven. He looked good, healthy, rested. And I looked like I'd aged 10 years.
I'd lost 20 pounds. I wasn't sleeping. I had stress-induced shingles at one point. I looked like what I was, a man who'd been destroyed. He didn't look at me. The whole 2-hour mediation. He looked at the mediator, at his lawyer, at his phone, at the table, never at me, not once. And I wanted him to. I wanted to see something in his eyes, guilt, shame, regret, anything. But he wouldn't give me that, and I realized that was intentional. Looking at me would make me human, would make this real. It's easier to do terrible things to people when you don't see them as people. So he didn't see me. I was just an obstacle, a problem to be managed. At one point, the mediator asked him directly, "Do you have anything you'd like to say to your father?" And he said, "No, just no," flat, emotionless.
And that was somehow worse than anything he'd done before, because the drugging, the psych ward, the house, all of that was abstract in a way. I could tell myself he panicked, he made bad choices, he got in over his head. But sitting 3 feet away from me and refusing to even acknowledge my existence, that was a choice he made in real time. That was deliberate cruelty. And I saw him clearly for the first time, not as my son, as a stranger who happens to share my DNA. After the mediation, I sat in my car in the parking lot and I called Dr. Chen. I said, I think I'm done hoping he'll apologize. She said, good, hope was keeping you stuck. Let it go. Letting go of hope is its own kind of grief, because hope is what keeps you tethered. Hope says maybe one day he'll understand, maybe one day he'll feel bad.
Maybe one day we'll reconcile and this will all have been a terrible mistake we can look back on and learn from. Letting go of hope means accepting that none of that is coming, that this is the end of the story, that there's no redemption arc, no tearful reunion, no apology that makes it make sense. This is it. And you have to build a life knowing that. I'm still building that life. Some days it feels possible. Some days it feels like I'm trying to build a house on sand. Here's a question I get asked a lot. Do you regret having him? Would you go back and choose not to be a father if you knew it would end like this? And that's complicated because no, I don't regret him. I regret what he became. I regret what he did. But the kid who used to climb into my lap and ask me to read him stories,
The teenager who called me after his first heartbreak, the young man who cried at his mother's funeral and held my hand during the service, I don't regret any of that. I don't know if that person ever really existed or if I imagined him. But the love I felt was real, even if it wasn't returned the way I thought it was. Even if I was loving a projection, my love was real. And I don't regret loving, but I do regret trusting blindly. I regret ignoring red flags. I regret signing that power of attorney without getting independent legal advice. I regret not asking more questions when he started coming around more often. I regret a lot of my choices, but not the love. The love was the most human thing about me. It's what he exploited, but it's also what makes me different from him. I can love and be hurt and still choose to stay open. He can't. His emptiness protects him from pain, but it also protects him from connection. I'd rather be me, broken and healing, than him, intact and hollow. Let me tell you about something that happened about 4 months in. I was at the grocery store, regular Tuesday afternoon, buying milk and bread, and I ran into a woman I used to know from when my son was in elementary school. Another parent. I hadn't seen her in years. She recognized me, came up all friendly, asked how I was. How was my son? Is he married yet? Do I have grandkids? All the normal questions. And I had a choice. I could lie, say fine, he's great, we're great. Keep it light. Keep moving, or I could tell the truth, and I was so tired of lying. So I said, actually, we're not in contact. He did some things that made a relationship impossible. Her face changed. That polite smile froze and then melted into awkwardness. She said, "Oh, I'm so sorry," in that voice people use when they don't know what else to say. And then she made an excuse and left. And I stood there in the dairy aisle feeling like I'd done something wrong, like I'd been inappropriate, like I should have just lied and made it easy for her. But you know what? I'm not responsible for making other people comfortable with my pain. I'm not required to minimize what happened, so someone I barely know doesn't have to feel awkward in the grocery store. That interaction taught me something. The truth makes people uncomfortable. And that's okay. Their discomfort is not my problem to solve. I started being more honest after that. When people asked about my son, I stopped saying he's busy or we don't see each other much. I started saying, we're estranged. He made choices that ended the relationship. Most people don't push after that. They hear the finality in it and they move on. A few people have pushed, asked what happened, and I've learned to gauge who deserves the real answer and who gets the short version. The short version is, it's complicated and painful and I'd rather not get into it. The real answer I save for people who've earned it. People who've shown me they can hold hard truths without trying to fix them or minimize them or explain them away. Roger asked me once if I thought I'd done everything I could as a father, if there was something I could have done differently that would have changed how this turned out. And I said, honestly, I don't know. Maybe, probably, I wasn't a perfect father. I worked a lot when he was young. I was emotionally distant sometimes. My wife was the warm one, the nurturing one. I was the provider, the disciplinarian. Maybe he needed more from me than I gave. Maybe if I'd been different, he would have been different. Or maybe not. Maybe he would have turned out exactly the same. I'll never know. And Dr. Chen says I have to make peace with not knowing. She says I'm trying to find the moment where I could have prevented this. The sliding doors moment where if I'd just made a different choice, said a different thing, been a different person, none of this would have happened. But she says that's a fantasy, that I'm giving myself too much power and him not enough responsibility, that he's a grown man who made choices. And I don't get to take responsibility for his choices just because he won't. That's been hard to internalize. Because taking responsibility feels like control. If it's my fault, then I could have prevented it, which means I have power. But if it's not my fault, if he's just someone who chose to do harm, then I was powerless. And powerlessness is terrifying. But the truth is, I was powerless. I couldn't have stopped him because I didn't know what he was planning. And even if I'd known, I don't know what I could have done. You can't force someone to be a good person. You can't love someone into having empathy. I tried. For years I tried. I made excuses for his selfishness. I told myself he was just immature. He'd grow out of it. He just needed time. But some people don't grow. They just get better at hiding who they are. Here's what I know about my son now that I didn't know before. He's capable of extraordinary calculation. The planning that went into what he did to me, the attention to detail, the timeline, the manipulation of multiple systems, that takes intelligence, that takes focus. He used all of that to destroy me. And if he can use that much energy to harm, he could have used it to help. He chose harm. That's on him. One thing I've noticed is how much energy it takes to hate someone. I was so angry for the first few months. Just burning rage all the time. I'd wake up angry. I'd go to bed angry. I'd be doing normal things, washing dishes, mowing the lawn, and I'd just be filled with this white-hot fury. And it was exhausting. Dr. Chen said anger is a necessary stage. You have to feel it. You can't skip it. But she also said you can't live there permanently. That anger is like a fire. It can keep you warm. It can light your way. But if you let it burn too long, it'll consume you. So I had to learn to let it come and go. To feel it when it showed up, but not feed it. Not keep it burning on purpose. I started noticing when I was keeping myself angry. When I was replaying the hurt on purpose. Going over the details again and again, like if I just examined it enough, I'd find the thing that made it make sense. But it never made sense. And replaying it just re-traumatized me. So I started interrupting the loop. When I'd catch myself going over it again, I'd literally say out loud, "Stop, we're not doing this right now." And I'd make myself do something else. Go for a walk, call Roger, work in the garden, anything to break the pattern. It didn't stop the anger, but it stopped the anger from becoming my whole personality. Let me tell you what else I learned. Healing is not forgetting. I think I thought for a while that if I could just stop thinking about it, if I could just move on and leave it behind, that would be healing. But that's not healing, that's avoidance. Healing is remembering what happened and not being destroyed by the memory. It's being able to tell the story without falling apart. I can tell the story now. I mean, I'm telling it to you right now. And I'm okay. I'm sad. I'm tired, but I'm okay. 3 months ago, I couldn't do that. 3 months ago, trying to talk about it would spiral me into panic attacks, crying, complete emotional dysregulation. Now I can hold it. I can look at it. I can speak it. That's healing. But healing doesn't mean I'm over it. I don't think I'll ever be over it. I think I'll carry this for the rest of my life. It'll just get lighter. Right now it's heavy. Some days it's all I can carry. Other days I can carry it and other things too. Eventually maybe it'll be light enough that I forget I'm carrying it sometimes. That's the hope anyway. Dr. Chen says trauma becomes integrated. It doesn't go away, but it becomes part of your story instead of the whole story. Right now, it's the whole story. Everything in my life is organized around this thing that happened. Eventually, it'll be one chapter, a big chapter, an important chapter. But not the only chapter. Here's something that surprised me. How much I missed him. Not him as he is, him as I thought he was. I missed having a son. I missed the idea of family. I missed being someone's father. That identity mattered to me. And losing it, even though I chose to lose it, even though keeping it would have meant enabling his harm, it still hurt. I grief the future I thought we'd have. I thought I'd be a grandfather someday. I thought he'd bring his kids to visit. I thought we'd have holidays together. I thought I'd be the old man telling stories to grandkids who barely listened but tolerated me, because that's what you do with old people. All of that's gone, and I have to build a different future, one that doesn't include him. And I don't know what that looks like yet. I've been thinking a lot about legacy, what I'm leaving behind. I always thought my legacy was my son, that I'd live on through him, through his kids, that my name would continue. But now I don't know if he'll even keep my name. He might change it. Probably should, honestly, given what he did. So what's my legacy now? I don't have an answer yet. Maybe it's the garden. I've been working in the garden a lot. My wife planted rose bushes and I've been taking care of them, adding new plants, building raised beds. It's physical, tangible. I can see the results. A seed becomes a plant becomes food or flowers. There's a logic to it that I find comforting. And maybe that's enough. Maybe my legacy is just that I kept going, that I didn't let him erase me, that I'm still here. I want to talk about something I don't hear people discuss much. The shame of being a victim, especially as a man, especially as an older man. There's this expectation that men are supposed to be strong, invulnerable, in control. And here I am, admitting that my son overpowered me, that I was drugged, that I was vulnerable and weak and taken advantage of. That goes against everything I was taught about masculinity. And I felt deep shame about that, like I'd failed at being a man, like I should have seen it coming, should have fought back, should have been stronger, smarter, less trusting, should have been less human, basically. Dr. Chen has been helping me unpack that. The shame, she says, shame thrives in silence. That the antidote to shame is speaking it out loud, so I'm speaking it. I was a victim. I was overpowered by someone I trusted. That doesn't make me weak. It makes me human. And the fact that it was my son, that actually makes it harder, not easier, because I was supposed to be able to trust him. The betrayal isn't a character flaw on my part. It's a character flaw on his. But shame doesn't care about logic. Shame just says you should have known, you should have stopped it. This is your fault. And I'm learning to talk back to the shame, to say, no, this is not my fault. I'm not responsible for someone else's decision to harm me. Here's a practical thing I did that helped. I made a list of everyone who's betrayed me or hurt me in my life, not to dwell on it, but to see the pattern. And what I noticed is that in every case, I blamed myself. Every single time someone hurt me, I found a way to make it my fault. I was too trusting. I was too naive. I should have known better. I should have set better boundaries, always should have. Like I had this unrealistic expectation that I was supposed to be psychic, that I was supposed to know people's hidden intentions and protect myself from things I couldn't see coming. And that's not reasonable. That's not how life works. People hide things, people lie, people betray, and sometimes you get hurt, and it's not always preventable. So I went through the list, and for each one, I wrote what actually happened versus what I told myself happened. What actually happened, my son drugged me and stole my house. What I told myself, I should have been more careful. I should have seen the signs. I should have protected myself better. And when I put them side by side like that, I could see how distorted my thinking was, how much responsibility I was taking for other people's actions. So I rewrote each one. What actually happened? My son chose to drug me and steal my house. What's true? That was his choice, his action, his responsibility. It sounds simple, but it was revolutionary for me. Seeing it in writing, seeing that I'd been carrying guilt that wasn't mine. I want to circle back to something I mentioned earlier. The difference between justice and healing. I got justice. The court ruled in my favor. I got my house back. There were legal consequences for my son, not as many as I wanted, but some. He had to pay legal fees. He lost his fiancée. His reputation took a hit. That's justice. And it mattered. I'm not going to pretend it didn't matter, but it didn't heal me. The day the judge made the ruling, I thought I'd feel relief, vindication, victory, and I did feel those things for about 20 minutes, and then I just felt tired. Because the legal case was over, but the emotional case wasn't. I still had to figure out how to live with what happened, how to trust again, how to sleep through the night, how to walk into my kitchen without having a panic attack. The court couldn't rule on any of that. Healing has been slower and less satisfying than justice. Justice has a clear ending, a verdict, a ruling. Healing doesn't end, it's ongoing, it's daily. Some days I heal a little, some days I backslide. There's no judge to tell me I'm healed now, case closed, move on with your life. I have to decide that for myself. And I'm not there yet. I don't know when I will be, maybe never fully. But partially, I'm getting there. Here's what partial healing looks like for me. I can talk about it without crying, most of the time. I can sleep in my house without checking the locks more than twice, usually. I can go whole hours without thinking about it. Sometimes that's progress. It doesn't feel like much, but it's something. Let me tell you about a moment that felt like healing. Small moment. I was in the garden about a month ago, planting tomatoes. It was early evening. The light was golden. The air smelled like dirt and growing things. And for about 10 minutes, I forgot. I was just a man planting tomatoes. I wasn't a victim. I wasn't traumatized. I wasn't grieving. I was just present, just there. And when I remembered, when my brain came back online and brought all the pain with it, I wasn't mad. I was grateful because those 10 minutes showed me it's possible. To be in my life without the trauma being the loudest thing. To have moments of peace. They're brief right now, but they exist. And if they can exist for 10 minutes, they can exist for longer. Eventually, that's the hope I'm building my life on. Not that the pain will disappear, but that it won't be the only thing I feel. I've been thinking about what I want to say to people who are going through something similar. And here's what I keep coming back to. You're not alone. I know it feels like you are. I know it feels like nobody could possibly understand how much this hurts. But you're not alone. There are more of us than you think. People who've been betrayed by family, people who've had to choose between their safety and their identity as a good daughter, a good son, a good parent. People who are grieving someone who's still alive. We don't talk about it much because the shame is so intense, because people don't want to hear it, because it makes everyone uncomfortable. But we're here and we see you. And if you're in the middle of it right now, if you're where I was 6 months ago, terrified and confused and not sure which way is up, I want you to know it gets lighter. Not easy, not resolved, but lighter. You will have moments where you forget. You will laugh again. You will sleep through the night again. You will rebuild. It won't look like what you had before. It'll be different, smaller in some ways, bigger in others, but it'll be yours. And nobody can take it from you because you built it with the knowledge of what betrayal looks like. You built it with boundaries, with clarity, with eyes wide open. That foundation is stronger than the one you had before, even if it doesn't feel like it yet. Here's my encouragement. Document everything. Trust your gut. Get witnesses. Build boundaries. Let yourself grieve. Let yourself be angry. Let yourself fall apart. And then get up. And then fall apart again. And then get up again. It's not linear. It's a mess. But messes are human. And you're allowed to be human. You're allowed to not have it together. You're allowed to need help. Ask for it. From people who've earned the right to help you. Not everyone has earned that right. Be selective. Protect yourself. You don't owe anyone access to your pain. You don't owe anyone forgiveness. You don't owe anyone reconciliation. You owe yourself safety. Start there. And if the person who hurt you never apologizes, if they never acknowledge what they did, if they go to their grave denying it or justifying it or blaming you, that doesn't mean it didn't happen. That doesn't mean you're wrong. That doesn't mean you're crazy. It means they're incapable of accountability. And that's on them, not you. You don't need their confession to validate your experience. You were there. You know what happened. That's enough. Let me say that again, because I need to hear it too. You know what happened. That's enough. You don't need anyone else to confirm it. You're not confused.
You're not misremembering. You're not overreacting. Trust that. Here's where I am now. 7 months out, I'm living in my house. It's slowly starting to feel like mine again. The turquoise living room helps. I have furniture now. Not everything I had before, but enough. I have a routine. Coffee on the porch in the morning, work in the garden in the evening, therapy on Thursdays, dinner with Roger on Sundays. Helen checks on me a few times a week. I'm building a life. It's quiet, smaller than the life I had before, but it's peaceful, and I haven't had peace in years, maybe decades. I was so focused on maintaining the relationship with my son, on being a good father, on doing everything right, that I forgot to just be. Now I'm learning how to just be, without performing, without managing anyone else's emotions.
Without walking on eggshells, just existing. It's strange, but good strange. I don't know what the future holds. I'm 65. I've got maybe 20 good years left if I'm lucky. I don't know what I'm going to do with them. I thought I knew. I thought I'd be a grandfather. Thought I'd travel maybe. Thought I'd grow old with my son checking in on me and making sure I was okay. That future is gone. This future is unwritten. And that's terrifying, but it's also kind of freeing. I get to decide. I don't have to consider anyone else. I don't have to make choices based on maintaining relationships or keeping peace. I can just choose what I want, and I don't even know what I want yet. I'm still figuring that out. But I have time and space and agency, and that's more than I had 7 months ago, man. So here's what I know now that I didn't know at 65, waking up in that hospital bed. You can be destroyed and still not be broken. My son took my house, my time, my trust. He tried to take my agency, my clarity, my name. And I'm still here, not because I'm special, not because I did everything right. I didn't. I made mistakes. I trusted too much. I ignored red flags. I let love blind me. But I made one decision over and over again. I refused to disappear. I didn't fight perfectly. I cried. I doubted myself. I wanted to give up some days. I had moments where I thought maybe it would be easier to just let him have the house, let him win, move into some small apartment somewhere and try to forget. But I didn't, and neither will you. If you're watching this and you feel erased by a partner, a parent, a child, a friend, I need you to hear this. You are not crazy. You are not overreacting. You are not too sensitive. You are responding to real harm with real pain, and that makes you sane. The person who hurt you is counting on your silence, your shame, your confusion. Don't give it to them. Tell the truth. Protect yourself. Let consequences happen. And if forgiveness comes, let it come on your timeline, not theirs. Not on anyone else's timeline. Not because someone told you that you have to forgive to heal. That's not true. You have to see clearly to heal. You have to protect yourself to heal. You have to stop carrying other people's guilt to heal. Forgiveness is optional. Clarity is not. Here's what I say to myself on the hard days. Maybe it'll help you too. I was loyal to someone who wasn't loyal to me. That doesn't make me a fool. It makes me human. And I'm allowed to learn. I'm allowed to close the door. I'm allowed to choose myself. I'm not broken. I've just been lied to. And now I know the truth. And the truth will rebuild me. Not quickly, not neatly, but truly. I'm rebuilding on truth now, on reality, on what is, not what I wish it was. And that foundation is solid. It's painful, but it's solid. And I can build a life on it. I am building a life on it, one day at a time, one choice at a time, one boundary at a time. If this video resonated with you, if you felt seen or understood or just less alone, and leave a comment, tell me your story, or just say, I hear you. I read them, every single one. And if you want more conversations like this, real, unfiltered, about the stuff we don't usually say out loud, hit subscribe. Not because I need the numbers at it, but because I think we need each other. I think there's power in being witnessed, in knowing someone else has walked through the fire and came out the other side. Maybe not whole, maybe scarred, maybe changed, but alive. Still here, still trying. That matters. You matter. Your pain matters. Your healing matters. and you don't have to do it alone. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for trusting me with your time. I know it's not easy to sit with this stuff. It's heavy, it's painful, and you chose to be here anyway. That says something about you. It says you're brave. It says you're willing to look at hard things. It says you're serious about healing, and that's everything. That willingness is everything. So thank you, truly. You're going to be okay. And maybe not today, maybe not next week, but eventually.
You're going to have a moment in a garden or a kitchen or a car where you forget for just a second, where you're just alive without the weight of it. And that moment will show you it's possible, and you'll have another one and another one. And slowly, so slowly, you might not even notice. Those moments will get longer, and the space between them will get shorter. And one day you'll realize you're living more than you're surviving. And that'll be healing. Not perfect, not complete, but real. And real is all we've got. Real is enough. You're enough just as you are right now. Healing in progress, that's enough. I believe that. I have to believe that. And I'm choosing to believe it about you too. You're going to make it. I believe that. And I'm here with you. We're here together. And that's something. That's everything, actually.
So let's keep going. One day at a time, one breath at a time, together. Thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next one.